I'm Jonathan Ridnell, and for the last 4 months I've been the facilitator of the Long Gully Community Garden.
And can you tell us a little bit about the origin of the Long Gully Community Garden?
Okay, so we're standing on an acre of ground on the edge of the Victoria Hill Mining Reserve, and my understanding, because there's no formal history of the garden, is that it was founded in the late 1980s, at about the same time as a lot of the houses in this area were built. And the idea was that the gardens weren't really big enough for proper veggie patches, and so let's have a community garden where people in the Long Gully suburb, particularly this housing trust area, could come along and share gardening experiences. However, what makes me smile is that now in 2022, you come for a drive down Derwent Drive and you see how big the blocks are compared to some of the new subdivisions that we're having in other parts of Bendigo. So that reason is gone, but what we do see is that a community garden is just a lovely hub to have people of all walks of life come along and share an interest in growing plants.
So you've hinted there a little bit about how the community's involved, and it's what are some of the, if you said broadly what the goals of the garden are, what are you looking to achieve?
Actually, it's really funny. I think the two simple goals are growing fruit and vegetables for our community, and I guess growing community participation through encouraging people to come along, learn some gardening skills if they don't have some, but also to form relationships, and whether or not it's just a good acquaintance who shares a garden bed next to mine, or whether or not it is somebody who creates a lifelong friend, I don't really mind. We're here to have a safe and in some ways immersive experience for people.
So just building on that a little bit, obviously you're talking about food for the community, and we have the local volunteers. Obviously it's a volunteer organisation. What are how did some of the decisions get made about what's grown and what's put in?
At this stage, when I suggest to volunteers, what do you think we should do, they're saying, you're the facilitator. So a lot of the decisions are mine. I'm hoping that will change as we develop levels of confidence and trust with various volunteers. But we have two kinds of volunteers here. People who actually will lease, and I call them custodians of a planter box. So that box is theirs and they can plant what they like. And so we have got La Su, a Karen person who's growing everything from arrowroot and Vietnamese mint to water spinach, some plants that I'm not very familiar with, right through to much more traditional people growing nasturtiums and broccoli. So the number of people taking up boxes is growing at the moment, which is great. The rest of the boxes are up to me and the volunteers, and we'll grow probably traditional stuff. Potatoes, for example. We've got silver beet coming on at the moment. We've got the pea crop in because we're talking to you in autumn. And those will be harvested and they'll be shared through the pop-up pantry we have at the Long Gully Neighbourhood Centre. We've also got a relationship with the St Matthew's People's Pantry, which is another Long Gully organisation, and then excess fruit and vegetables from that goes to Food Share, which at this stage is really handy because it's a 2-minute drive down the street.
Wow, it sounds like you're really connected to the community, and you highlight that idea of the cross-cultural sort of pollination of ideas, and food is so connected to culture, so it sounds great.
Yeah, I think that those connections are really being built at the moment, both at the garden and through the neighbourhood centre. Long Gully has had a reputation, which is really funny because now I'm working in this community, I don't see where that reputation comes from. So I think that there's some confidence, but the other thing is the neighbourhood centre we've got another one at Eaglehawk, another one in Bendigo at Creek Street, and another at Morong, for example, and Kangaroo Flat. But we're becoming the neighbourhood centre for the gullies. So Long Gully, California Gully, Maiden Gully, North Bendigo. So our catchment is actually a lot bigger than Long Gully now, and we're seeing that I think is really powerful, in that cross-suburban relationships mean we much better understand who the people are who live in our community.
It sounds like you're developing a garden that's going to be really sustainable by being so connected to the community. Is there anything beyond that in terms of sustainability that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I guess that's really interesting. Let's use the word sustainability as in people. We started a volunteer program at the beginning of the year which has just gone in leaps and bounds. So on Thursdays and Mondays we have probably 9 consistent volunteers plus a handful of other people who come and go. We're going into winter, so some of the grey nomads will leave us for 3 or 4 months, but I think every organisation in Bendigo knows that experience. So that sort of sustainability, and that what can we achieve with more labour as opposed to what can we get away with just a facilitator, is miles different. And so I don't know whether you know our garden, but it's changed a lot in just 4 months because of the volunteers. The other side, sustainability, we have a no chemical policy on our garden beds. It's a challenge when we've got beautiful fruit trees that have been ravaged by different kinds of diseases over the last 12 or 18 months, but I'm working on a lot of integrated pest management strategies for that. You'll notice, for example, this row here we've pruned, and the idea is to get them down to a height that we can net, and also work with various kinds of traps and things to hopefully minimise. If the insects are sharing it with you, you know it's good to eat. But we don't want them to take all of it. I think that's probably the philosophy that we've got.
That's great. That's fantastic. So looking to the future, what are some of the next steps for the garden?
Okay, so the integrated pest management. The other thing that we are dependent on at the moment is petrol for lawnmower, ride-on mower, whippersnippers. I would love to look at whether or not we can get some sort of solar array into the thing, maybe a caravan type one that will help us maybe run a 3-way fridge, maybe run a cooker once or twice a week to boil the billy, but also to power some of our power tools with electricity, battery operated rather than fuel operated. That's one small step. The other one is we're looking to get a better reticulation system. This one's a bit ad hoc, so some of the pipe diameters are very low, so getting pressure to and appropriate water to the other end of the garden is an issue. So again, that's a water use thing. We've got some beautiful, I'm guessing maybe 30,000 litres of rainwater, no pump. So how do we get that to be integrated more effectively into our watering system and save water from the mains? So there's some of the sustainability areas. The other side is that if you go for a walk to our community garden, you'll see that the front half is vegetable and fruit tree production, the back half is a park, and we would like to see, and we're developing a strategy now on how do we use that properly. In the past, this garden has had community barbecues every month. Those sorts of things we're really looking forward to returning to see it not just as a what would you call it, production garden, but an amenity garden as well. A nice place at the base of the Victoria Hill Reserve where people come and sit in the shade and read a book, or let the grandchildren run around while they pick a few weeds.
It sounds pretty idyllic, so how can people get involved?
Oh look, best thing to do is to find us on Facebook, I think. The Long Gully Neighbourhood Centre as our auspicing organisation. We don't have our own contacts, but they're both on Facebook. You'll find us in the book, and of course get to the end of Humboldt Drive and you can drop in and say hello Monday to Thursday 9 till 3.
Jonathan, thanks for your time.
A pleasure.